Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny along with Kenny Squared. Welcome back to Sports on the Positive Tip. We have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. Kenny, I just want to talk about this in our opening. Uh, Dick Vermeil, we talked about last week, and that stuck with me because I was like, there was a lot more to his story, and I had to look it up. So, Dick Vermeil, first of all, I'll give you this stat. You know, he's the only person to ever win Coach of the Year at the high school level, the junior college level, the college level. He was the head coach at UCLA and in the NFL, and he won it in the NFL a couple of times. Now, I think we had said St. Louis Cardinals. Here was the team. I don't know why I blanked on this. He coached the Philadelphia Eagles to their first Super Bowl back in 1980. And the Eagles were a bad team. They hadn't been to the playoffs since 1960 until he got there. And then he got them into the playoffs, turned them around right away. But 2 years later, and this was first of all, he's 89 years old now and he's in the Hall of Fame. Deservedly so. But 2 years later, he's known for this. And again, I apologize for blanking on this. In 1982, he quit, and it was a shock to everybody. Right, the Eagles were still a good team, and he quit, and he cited that he was burnt out. And that was at the time one of the first times we heard that expression, burnout. And so that happens in life. Pastors burn out. There are doctors that burn out, lawyers, executives, CEOs. But it was the first time you heard it in sports, and it kind of brought light to the industry because he was a workaholic. He was one of those coaches that would get in at 3, 4 in the morning and work until 10, 11 o'clock at night, sleep in his office. Bill Belichick also kind of made that a little bit famous. Tony Dungy actually kind of said he was the opposite of that he wanted to spend more family time. He got in at 7 instead of 4, and so he never burnt out. And a lot of coaches now don't go in or work all night. A lot of coaches, go in and try to keep relatively normal hours. But he brought a lot of spotlight to the word burnout back then. And then here's where his career got interesting again. He dabbled a little bit in broadcasting for a bit. Um, but he was gone from the NFL for 15 years, Kenny, and the Rams hire him. He knocks on the door and says, "Hey, I want to get back in." And guess what he does? He takes the greatest show on turf back to the Super Bowl because the Rams have been on a drought too. And the Rams go to the Super Bowl and he wins the Super Bowl with the Rams. So that famous one with Tennessee where it goes down to the last play, I suppose that is in 2000, the 1999 season. So 2000, I remember watching that game in a hotel room by myself. I first started traveling with Sprint. So he wins the Super Bowl with the Rams. He didn't win it with the Eagles. They got crushed by the Raiders, if I remember right. But he's one of those handful of coaches, like you said last week, that has taken two different teams to the Super Bowl. We may see that again this year. So that is the quick story of Dick Vermeil. Your comments?
Um, Dick Vermeil, he was the guy that was the coach for in the movie Invincible, right?
Yes, very good. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And that's a good memory. And that was, and I want to say that movie was set in 77, 78, somewhere around there. Um, the other interesting thing is that he retires a second time, but I think 5 years later, maybe it wasn't that long, maybe it was about 2 or 3 years later, he comes back and he coaches the Chiefs. And the Chiefs, he kind of lays the foundation because they also hadn't been in the playoffs for a while since the Joe Montana days in the mid 90s. And he comes back and he takes the Chiefs to the playoffs in 2003, somewhere around there, 2004. And then it's him that wants to bring Herm Edwards back, to the Chiefs. He was Herm Edwards' coach with the Eagles when Herm Edwards was a player. And so he reaches out. He's looking for a successor. He knows he's going to retire now for the last time. And this is when Herm Edwards quits the Jets. And he goes to the Chiefs. And just an interesting side note, before he coaches a game that late August, early September, there's a conference out there in Kansas City with Sprint. And they put us all in buses and they take us out to Arrowhead Stadium. I think I told you this when we were out there in Kansas City. And while we weren't directly inside the stadium, we were in their training facility. And Herm Edwards gave like an hour-long motivational speech to all of the Sprint folks. But he had just gotten there as the Chiefs coach, and my feelings was kind of raw because he had said all year, "I'm not thinking about leaving. I'm not thinking about the Chiefs." As soon as the season was over, calls a press conference. "I'm going to the Chiefs." So I was a little down on Herm Edwards. Really good guy, but that's kind of the story of Dick Vermeil. And you're right, that's a really good memory from the movie Invincible, right? Was the name of the movie? Yep, yep.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a lot to get to. The NFL coaching stuff took some turns this past week. We'll get into your final rankings as well as all of the playoffs, college playoffs, baseball. Kyle Tucker, Cody Bellinger, Alex Bregman, Bo Bichette. They're still free agents, as is Framber Valdez and Ranger Suarez. But the Cubs do make a big trade, and I don't think a lot of people know how good Edward Cabrera actually is. He's very, very good. Yeah. And there's a big trade in the NBA last night. You ready to get to this?
Let's get into it.
All right.
This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention coffee lovers! Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com.
Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Kenny, what a crazy NFL season. We're going to start in the NFL, and you're going to break down your final rankings, or at least your final regular season rankings. And we can chat a little bit about the NFL season, which was really nutty. And I suspect that these playoffs are going to be just as nutty because, the last regular season game was crazy with the Ravens and Steelers going right down to the final buzzer. And the Ravens missing a field goal that would have won the game wide right. It was just a crazy season. And then John Harbaugh gets let go after 18 years in Baltimore. So let's start there, and then we'll look at some of the openings here. And I do want to hear what the reaction was there in Cleveland with Stefanski. But Harbaugh was clearly the big story. You said this. You said this a couple of weeks back, actually, when we were talking about some of the NFL openings. You said there's going to be some obvious ones, and then there's going to be at least one that just shocks us. And that was definitely the one. I was mildly surprised by Raheem Morris as well, and I was still a little bit surprised by Stefanski, but it was the Harbaugh one that blew me away. So, take it away. What were some of your thoughts, and then take us right into what's the reaction there in Cleveland?
Yeah, so it is interesting how a lot of the coaching, because like typically in the NFL you see about 6, 7, 8 head coaching vacancies, which is kind of crazy. Like basically a quarter of the NFL coaches heading into next year are going to get fired.
Yeah.
And like we could probably name a few like that are already on the hot seat even before the season started.
Yeah.
One is probably your boy Aaron Glenn,
Well,
unfortunately.
yeah.
Another is probably Mike McDaniel if they don't have a good season. And it's just interesting because there's usually like you can probably pick the 3 or 4 that they'll probably be let go by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Because it's usually like the same ones that are always in the top 10 in the NFL draft. Like there's a couple though that it's like, well, that's kind of weird, or why did we even do that? Like Pete Carroll, I don't know why they even hired him. That the Raiders are paying $50 million to head coaches that have been fired next year
Yeah.
on top of whoever they hire, whether you end up with Harbaugh or whoever.
There's no way. Can we handicap that now? There's no way Harbaugh goes to the Raiders. I just like, do you think there's a chance if they pay him enough?
I think there's a chance if they pay him enough because he's got Brock Bowers there as a piece. He's got Genti there, and also they have the #1 overall pick. So if he feels like Mendoza is the guy, then he has a chance. I'll get to who I think is probably his best
Okay.
spot,
Okay.
but Um, yeah, I think the most shocking one has to be the Ravens. Even though I did kind of call it, I'd
Yeah.
said before the game, like whoever loses this game is the coach getting fired um because even with Mike Tomlin like missing the playoffs, even though you're 8 or 9-8, and like it just kind of seems like you kind of have a cap. And I don't know, he still could be on the hot seat and potentially get fired if they put together a dud performance against the Texans. But I think that the Ravens, I think they're just at the point where they have to shake something up. Um, since Harbaugh took over, the Ravens have given up the most leads of 5 points or more um, in the NFL. Like they can't hold on to leads. Some of the stuff too just kind of seems a little like towards the end, just kind of weird. Like you have a great running back in Derrick Henry who's cooking, and then you just stop using him.
Yeah.
Or the weird, like, instead of trying to rush a few yards forward, doing a kneel down to try to center the kick, which I guess completely just messed up the kicker. Um,
Yeah.
but I think the craziest thing, I'll just talk about that game real quick, and then I'll get to kind of the overall head coaching carousel that we're hitting. Um, that was the first kick ever where both teams' playoff hopes were on the line, whether that kick
Wow.
was made or missed.
Wow.
So
I didn't know
there's a
that.
lot of pressure there. And it's like there's a couple of really weird butterfly effects, but you do wonder if Justin Tucker wasn't a weird creep if he makes that and then they're heading on to the playoffs.
He, so he never in the playoffs, he never missed a big kick. I don't remember, Tucker ever missing a big kick. Was he the kicker back when they had New England on the ropes when New England was on top of their game? Did he miss that
Yeah.
kick? That was him. That's the only one I can
Yeah.
remember him missing in the playoffs, in a big spot, put it that way too.
Well, the crazy thing is Tyler Luke hadn't missed a kick under 50 yards at all this year,
All
except for
year.
that one.
And he's the first kicker that they ever drafted, I think, also,
Wow.
it, I was it was stunning to me. It really was.
Yeah. So looking at like the overall scape, I'll talk real quick with the Browns. I think this was kind of expected. There were rumblings before the game last week that like, yeah, Stefanski's probably on his way out. Some people will blame his dealing with Shador. I think they're just ready for a new voice in there. They also announced that the GM is coming back. Um, I was watching a video. Someone was saying that him and DePodesta were kind of a package deal. So with DePodesta leaving to go, I think to the Rockies,
Yeah.
it was kind of inevitable that Stefanski is gone. So um, the Browns head coaching like their situation is weird because like you have Deshaun Watson who you can't get rid of. You have Shador Sanders who's shown flashes, but like isn't definitely like that guy yet. And then also you have like a bizarre wide receiver core, but maybe you like they got the number 6 overall pick. Maybe you draft a like a whether wide receiver, running back, whoever. So they're in kind of a bizarre state. Um, if like I'm looking at all of the different head coaching openings, I think the number one is probably the Ravens because you have an MVP in Lamar, you have a great running back. I think if you can implement a good system there, I think it can work pretty well. Um, honestly, I would say number two is probably the Giants because you have
Yep.
Jackson Dart, who has shown that he can be a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
You'll get back Scadaboo, you'll get back Neighbors, and then you'll also have the number 5 overall pick. You could add number 1, but that's another story. Um, but like you can kind of build off of that. And the second that Stefanski and Harbaugh were fired, like I had said, I mean, I mentioned this when they fired Dayball back in the middle of the season. The guy I would want is Mike McCarthy. He's become number 3 on my list. Like number 1,
Yeah.
ask John Harbaugh what does it take to get you here.
Yeah.
And then number 2, I would check with Stefanski too, because I think if you have either of those guys in there, then you can build on something and you have the momentum. The other head coaching jobs too are just kind of like they're a little bizarre.
Yeah.
Like the Raiders, I think because you have the number one overall pick, because you have a couple other guys there, you have a good chance to really create a core that you want. But still, like the Raiders have a lot of weird dysfunction. The Tom Brady aspect can be a little off-putting for some people. So, like, I don't know. The Falcons is probably one of the weirdest firings. It's not like the most surprising. I think the most surprising is the Ravens. But like, if you like, I showed you a video, the butterfly effect of the Falcons losing to the Jets on a last second field goal.
Yeah.
Because they even though they were eliminated like early December, they ended up tied for the division
They
with
kept
both the Buccaneers and the Panthers.
they kept playing.
But
Yeah.
they kept playing hard. And if if that field goal wasn't made and the Falcons went in overtime, the Falcons are heading to the playoffs. Raheem Morris doesn't get fired. And
Right.
also the Jets probably end up with the number one overall, as opposed to now where they have the second, and you just are kind of crossing your fingers that you don't end up with like a Trevor Lawrence, Sam Darnold, which I guess like I don't know, Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson was the other guy.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't want to end up there.
No.
But yeah, if I'm looking at the Browns, like the Browns and Ravens can do the funniest thing by essentially swapping head coaches, which would be really funny.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't like that because I want the Giants to get both of those guys or one of those guys.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know who ends up in the Browns. My leaning is probably Jim Schwartz, who's the defensive coordinator.
Right.
They really kind of like him in
Get
that
another
front
shot.
office, and yeah, I'll give him another shot to kind of see what happens. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, it'll be interesting because I wouldn't be surprised if Tomlin like they probably wouldn't fire him, but it might be like one of those mutually parting ways type of thing. Or
Yeah.
if like even I don't know if the Packers would fire Matt LaFleur if he has a bad
Yeah.
outing because like you can blame that on injuries. But right now with the seven, I would probably say the guys to look out like the vacancies that I think are most attractive would be the Ravens and then also the Giants in there.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll mention, Harbaugh was reached out by seven different teams within an hour of getting fired,
Who's the
which is still
17th?
weird because
Yeah.
there's a 17 like someone reached out even though they have a head coach.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be the Jets, could be the Buccaneers, could be like one of those 17. Maybe I don't know if the Colts would do it, but
Dolphins.
just very interesting.
Yeah. Maybe the Dolphins also. And you mentioned those earlier. I think that the three that would be on the hot seat if they still remained in their job, and that was very suspicious, right? That he said there's 17, but there's six openings. Um, Todd Bowles, Aaron Glenn, and Mike McDaniels, I think, would be the three that would be on the hot seat. We could probably name a few others going into next season if they survive this full off season. Um, Let me give you a name that Tony Kornheiser said yesterday or the day before for the Browns, because he said that there's probably only one person that could get a lot out of Deshaun Watson, and that would be Dabo Sweeney with Clemson, where he went to college, obviously, at. And I thought that was really interesting because Sweeney and Clemson have had just this weird thing. They don't want to let Sweeney go because of the legacy that he's built there. I mean, face it, 15 years ago, no one heard of Clemson, but it's been a little bit now. But remember, he had them in championship game after championship game. And think about how many guys in the NFL, Trevor Lawrence and, a few others, ATN, are so successful that came out of Clemson. And he said that maybe it's time for him to go there and or go from there, and the Browns would be an ideal spot. Have you heard that name at all there mentioned in Cleveland?
I'm not, and that's interesting because like
Yeah,
it really is a it really is such a bizarre situation because they're totally stuck with it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know what they do.
Yeah.
Because like, do you build around Deshaun Watson, who like basically hasn't played in like 4 years
Yeah.
and definitely hasn't played well in 4 years? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Bill
weird.
Bill O'Brien, right, was the coach of the Texans when he was there when he was doing well in the NFL. That might be another guy you try to go get. I believe he's the coach of Boston College now, but I think he's happy there and they've had some success with him. Um, Stefanski is such an interesting candidate, I think. Listen, Harbaugh is by far the top candidate. I think he has the pick of the jobs. I think you nailed it, right? I think the Giants job is very, very attractive because the Giants are sort of like the Ravens. That owner of the Ravens, Biscotti is his name, and I think he's the same guy that I think that's the same family of the cookies that you see in the supermarket, the Biscotti cookies. I could be off there, but I'm almost sure I read that somewhere recently. But I mean, think about they are very, very steady ownership team. They have a great, great, foundation. So that would be an enormously attractive job to go to the Ravens, right? Because you'll have some stability. You're not going to have the owner meddling and stuff like that. But the Giants are like that too. I do like. I think Mara is by far a better owner than Woody Johnson, or right now than Mark Davis with the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders are the poster child for how you and I've talked about this a lot. How firing and bringing in coach after coach after coach, it's not a formula for success. The Raiders have been to the playoffs a few years back, but they really had no success. Gosh, for probably about the last 20 years. And but it's because I think that I read a long article on ESPN about the Raiders' dysfunction this past year with Pete Carroll, and it was it was more it was like things like Geno Smith and the running back. They were meeting with the offensive line without the offensive line coach or without Pete Carroll. It was stuff that was just very dysfunctional. But as part of the organization, I mean, and you bring in Pete Carroll, who seems like a young 74 years old, but uh, I mean, he's not going to be there long, right? Even I mean, he's not going to be there for 5 years, So why not? Why didn't you get somebody that can really invest and change the culture? He was trying to win just quick, and so he set the development back of a lot of young players. So I think, and the Falcons have a lot of talent there, especially on the offensive side. So there's some good openings. I think the Cardinals need a reset. They should get themselves a young coach who's going to be there for the next 5, 7 years that can rebuild that culture. They probably need to look at moving their quarterback. Titans the same way. I think, like the Titans are looking at Raheem Morris, it looks like, and I think he'd probably be the ideal coach for them. Um, but this is going to be fascinating. Fascinating to see where both Harbaugh and Stefanski land. There's going to be coaches that'll get jobs that we never heard of, and I'm hoping the Giants get one of those two guys. Now, I'm told that the Giants have, I'm told, but I read that the Giants have they interviewed Stefanski yet? They said he was on a plane on his way here. That was like 2 days ago, and I think they've already interviewed Mike McCarthy. So that's a good sign of where I think they want to go, right? With an experienced, head coach that's gonna, be here for a while. So that's good. All right, let's you ready to do your rankings?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I have another very interesting fact as you pull it up.
Okay, let me pull it up.
The Arizona Cardinals.
Yes,
You know that they've existed for a long time. They're like one of the OG franchises.
right.
They've never had a head coach more than 6 years.
Yeah, that's not a formula for success either. That is really, really. I don't even know what to make of that. They were the St. Louis Cardinals for a long time, and I remember them just having really good players, but maybe making the playoffs here and there, but not doing much. That is just really, really weird. All right, here we go. All right, your screen is up. Take it away, sir.
All right, so I made a big divide. I put all the teams because I figured this is the last time we'll talk about all of the teams going home. So I made a big divide of Cancun for all the teams that are going home. So let's start at the bottom. Just rebuild. I mentioned this about the Cardinals. You also got the Vikings and the Jets there. I don't know. Um, JJ McCarthy doesn't really seem like a good answer there. And I don't know what the heck the Jets are going to do. I'm assuming they'll draft a quarterback. Um,
Yeah.
to me, like, you've got Aaron Glenn. It looks like he's coming back, I think.
Yeah.
Um, so like to me, don't give him a veteran, just give him a young guy and so that they can grow together. Um, Justin Fields, I appreciate the risk. I think it was worth it. Um, but also a fun fact, Justin Fields, so this is in response to a comment. Justin Fields had a better passer rating this year than Bo Nix. There's a few people saying, "Oh, Bo Nix is great." He was good. He had a very low passer rating though.
That's so,
So,
yeah, that's interesting.
um, just rebuild, like start over.
Yeah.
The next one, 2027 dark horse. I think these three teams, they might have the building blocks where they can. I don't think they'll be good next year, but they have a chance to be good in 2027. Number one, I have the Browns here. Talk about Myles Garrett in a little bit, but obviously him winning the sack record, probably the highlight of the year.
Yeah.
But like you got to get out of the Deshaun Watson business, which the earliest they can do that is before the 2027 season. Um, you got to nail the head coach, and their draft outside, like a lot of their draft focus was on, well, they drafted Dylan Gabriel, who was kind of bad, and Jador Sanders, who was also kind of bad. But like outside of those picks, they had a really good draft class. Mason Graham is one of the defensive linemen, had a really good season. Schlesinger, I think he has a good chance of winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. I don't know if he will or not, but like they had a good draft class, so they need to continue to build on that.
Yeah.
The Raiders we just talked about, they got to figure out their lives in a lot of ways. And the Titans, I don't know if Cam Ward's the answer. He was one of the worst quarterbacks that played a lot, but also he's a rookie. Give him
Yeah.
some time, give him a good head coach. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Next one big question mark. These four teams, they have to answer the big question. The Falcons, who's your head coach? The Giants also, who is your head coach?
Right.
I made this before we knew Harbaugh was fired, by the way. So that kind of like I think if you answer that question with the Giants, also with the Falcons, like if you can get the right head coach in that system, I think you have the pieces. The Falcons also a little bit with their quarterback. I think the Bengals, their big question is like, how are you addressing the defense?
Yeah.
Because their defense was awful.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about it on Sunday. If you put the Browns defense with the Bengals offense, you have a very good team.
Yeah.
But like obviously you can't do that. But I
Right.
think that if they can address it, even if it's just a draft, if they can sign a guy or two,
Yeah.
I think that they could be pretty formidable. The Dolphins, their big question is who is going to be quarterback? Are you sticking with Tua? Are you drafting a guy? Kind of seems like a good Kyler Murray spot right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Kyler Murray's gone. I don't think he's going to play for Arizona next year. So kind of
Yeah.
figuring that out. And then the Giants, if you can nail the head coach, you have the quarterback, you have good weapons. Add another weapon, whether you're talking an offensive lineman, whether you're talking another wide receiver, I think that they can be good. Optimism for next year. These four teams, I think that you can have some hope that next year is going to be good. The Cowboys are first on there. They had a pretty good second half. Despite trading away Micah Parsons, they really replaced him pretty decently. Dak also still looks really good. I think one of their bigger questions is do you bring back George Pickens? What does that look like? But I think that, especially when you're looking at the scope of the NFC East, where the Eagles kind of seem like a weird team. Like, could the Eagles next year be the Chiefs this year, where some of their weird luck that they've kind of gotten away with goes away? and they don't make the playoffs, I don't know. Could be. And then also, obviously, the Giants and the Commanders, there's a lot of questions overall. The Colts, um, they should have a lot of optimism because listen to how they ended the season. Um, so I was talking with Nate about it. We talked about this a while ago, but like especially when you look at how the standings ended and see how everyone was. These were their last 7 games. The Chiefs, when they were still in contention, they lost in overtime. The Texans, the Jaguars, the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Jaguars, the Texans.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that's a horrible schedule.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There should be a lot of optimism for them next year.
Yeah.
They got to figure out the quarterback situation. Daniel Jones will probably be back close to early in the season, but like if he's not, what are you doing? Anthony Richardson kind of seems like he might be out the door. They started rookie week 18. I don't think you can rely on Phillip Rivers to come in again.
No, he's not coming back. You already said.
Yeah, so and Phillip Rivers, I know they said could be a head coach candidate, but I haven't seen any rumors with him.
Yeah.
But I think there can be some optimism there. The Saints too. The Saints finished last and they had a bad season, but also they finished pretty strong. And sometimes you see teams that were bad but then finish strong tend to bring that momentum into the following year. Tyler Shuck might be one of the better quarterbacks of this rookie quarterback draft class, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I think you got the Commanders. I don't know. Jaden Daniels was hurt.
Yeah.
You might have some optimism for next year.
Yeah.
Next year, this is just an off year. All four of these teams, I think a lot of people had them either in the Super Bowl or making deep runs in the playoffs. I think you might just call it an off year. The Ravens, obviously, this was before Harbaugh got fired. I put this together, but I do think that kind of an off year. Like, Lamar was hurt for part of it. I think he might have also been dealing with injuries and playing through it, which might be why he didn't run as much, and that might be part of it. The Lions, I don't know what you can say aside from their division's really good. In fact, so good that the NFC North is only the second division in like 50 plus years. The other one is the AFC North from 2023, where all the teams finished with a winning record.
Wow.
In fact, their entire division finished completely better than the NFC South.
Wow.
So, like, if the Lions were in the South, they would have won the division.
Yeah.
Even though they finished in last place. So they'll have a last place schedule. I think that you can just kind of see it as an anomaly.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Chiefs had a bad year. Mahomes got hurt. I think one of the biggest things is when does he get back?
Yeah.
Because that'll determine how good or bad their season is going to be next year. And then the Bucs, I don't know what to do with them aside from they had bad injuries. But also the 49ers had bad injuries. But it happens. We'll see what happens next year. Hopefully Baker can kind of have a little bit of a bounce back, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right, so now to the playoff teams. This next year is the playoff footnote. In other words, like, you're going to know that you won't kind of remember that these teams made the playoffs.
Right.
Unless, like, you actually look, oh, yeah, they make the playoffs back in 2025, 26.
Yeah.
And that's the Panthers and the Steelers. There's a chance that both of them will win. I'll say this right now. Any outcome that happens this weekend, I'm not going to be surprised at. Like, right now, I believe the Rams are like 10 and a half point favorites to beat the Panthers. Would you be that shocked if somehow they upset them? No.
Didn't the Panthers beat them in the regular season?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I'm pretty sure they beat them earlier in the year. So I wouldn't be surprised. Same with the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers might have a little bit more magic in him.
Yeah.
But also there's a weird stat. Mike Tomlin hasn't lost on Monday night at home. He's 12-0 in his career, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Unlucky draw. You have the Packers and you got the Eagles.
Yeah.
They might win, they might lose, but who they face, it's very unlucky for them. Like the Packers, they're facing off against the Bears, division rival, on the road. in probably somewhat cold conditions.
Oh yeah.
Just an unlucky draw. They might have done better if depending on who the matchup is. The Eagles the same. The 49ers, they've been really good recently.
Yeah.
But who knows? We'll see. Next year, solid run, bitter ending. I think these teams might make a little bit of a playoff run, but you'll look and say, well, we didn't get to where we wanted to go. Um, but also it could be a building block. Like I think if any of these teams lose this weekend, be like, yeah, it was not what we hoped. It's not what we expected, but we're okay with the season. Because I think the Bears like first playoff game for Caleb Williams, we're good. I think though that the with the Chargers, Justin Herbert 0-3 in the playoffs might sting a little bit more.
Hmm. Yeah.
But also like you can blame injuries to the offensive line. They ranked 32nd according to PFF in offensive line production. So like
Beat up.
I think you give them a pass. And
Yeah.
obviously the 49ers, if they lose, like the fact that they got as far as they did is incredible.
Yeah.
And the Patriots, once again, rookie quarterback. In fact, each of the top two seeds in the AFC and NFC, none of them have not won a playoff game. And I believe that's the first time ever that that's happened.
Wow.
So a very, as Clyde Frazier would say, a very neophyte type of playoff
Right.
performance here. All right, next year actually dangerous. You got the Rams, the Broncos, the Texans, and the Jaguars. I think all these teams could be actually dangerous in the postseason. I think it could really be a big deal.
Yeah.
So I think the ones to really look out for, Texans and the Jags, are both going on pretty significant winning streaks. And yeah, I don't know. That's good. That's gonna be a very interesting. It's gonna be an interesting dynamic, I think.
Yeah.
And then Super Bowl bound. This is kind of my Super Bowl prediction. My preseason was the Packers and the Bills. I'm kind of going Seahawks Bills here. So I
Okay.
say Super Bowl bound, maybe.
Okay.
I'll just say this on them. The Bills, there's only one stadium that Josh Allen has not played in. It's Levi Stadium.
Oh,
So
okay. They've never played
so
out there, huh? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting if like they can make the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now, I think that out of all the teams that are presently in the playoff picture, I think the team that has the most pressure is probably the Bills because
Oh,
all of the other big quarterbacks are out.
yeah.
He's definitely like the guy with the most to gain, but also the most to lose.
Yeah.
The other one, you look at the Seahawks, and the Seahawks to me are very interesting because of a fun, weird stat. The last three times that we have elected a new pope, I say we as though we do it. The Seahawks have finished with the number one seed,
Yeah.
and the previous two times they also made the Super Bowl. So we'll see. They're
Yeah.
also the number one seed. I think that there's a lot of dangerous stuff that can happen there. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, great job on this, as always, all year. Before I pull it down, Sam Darnold and the career of Sam Darnold and the career of Jim Plunkett. And maybe I'll do a deep dive if we have time next week on the career of Jim Plunkett. They just parallels. Folks that are my age that'll listen or watch us this week will know what I'm talking about. Because I mean, Darnold, this is just amazing, the turnaround here, and it's not just with the one team now, he's done it with the two different teams. So it's him with all the talent, and who knows what he's certainly lived down. Like we talked a lot about Mark Sanchez, right? And the butt fumble thing. He seemed to never live that down. And now he's obviously known for something else. But it was Sam Donald that, right, was saying on Monday Night Football, he's mic'd up and he's saying, I'm seeing ghosts out there. And he's throwing interception after interception. And I think no one talks about that now because the guy has become an elite quarterback. And and he's a leader of clear leader of that team. And they're not the Legion of Boom, but they've got a really, really good defense. They've got the loudest stadium in the league. This is going to be fascinating to watch. You know, it really is. And you're right with Buffalo. Um, this is the window, man. You know, sort of like compare them to the Knicks this year. This is the window where you've got a chance. You know, you've got all these other teams out, but they have a tough draw right here to start. So great job with that as always. So let's go to the games real quick. And I'm not going to say what are you watching because these are the only games on, right? So Saturday, Rams at Carolina, and then Green Bay at the Bears. The Green Bay Bears game is on Amazon Prime. I think they did that last year as well. Um, you're obviously picking the Rams to beat the Panthers, and I'm guessing you like the Bears over the Packers. I think you're on mute.
I'm on mute.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, you got both of those correct. But honestly, I think the Bears and Packers might be a little close, especially because you got Matt LaFleur, who has some playoff experience. It's really hard to predict the Packers because Jordan Love, he's played three playoff games. One was amazing, one was mediocre, and one was awful. So you have no idea what you're going to get from him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
also you don't know what you'll get from Caleb Williams. But I do think that Ben Johnson will throw one of those really fun, crazy, wild type of plays that could be a big game changer. So
Yeah, I'm all in on the Bears this year. I think that they are going to make a deep run here. I'm not saying they'll go to the Super Bowl, but I think they're going to make a big run. And I do think Green Bay has to reassess because after the first couple of maybe 3, 4 weeks of the season, I know I said on the show, hey, it looks like the Packers are the Super Bowl team, you know, when they got Micah Parsons and everything. But I think they're going to have to look at everything now. The cold weather's not going to bother them in Chicago. The weather will probably be decent in Carolina, so I don't think just yet there's any weather issues. But I do like the Rams also to make a deep run. Um, so Sunday, here's the tough draw for Buffalo, right? They go to Jacksonville. And then that's followed by Niners at the Eagles, which I think is the matchup of the weekend, in my opinion. And then Sunday night, you've got the Chargers at the Patriots, where the weather there may bother the LA team a little bit. But who you like in there? Buffalo, Jacksonville, Niners, Eagles, Chargers, Pats.
I Buffalo by a tiny hair. Um, because Jacksonville, the last time they lost was 2 months ago, basically.
Wow,
Like they lost the first week of November.
they've been on a run.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
they've been on a run. Trevor Lawrence has like I don't know, dude. I don't know if they do player of the month in football, but if they did, he probably would win in December.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
like he was really good down the stretch, but also we've seen that, and he hasn't really translated that fully into the playoffs yet.
yeah,
Josh Allen, we've seen him go into playoff mode, so I'm going with the Bills just by a little bit.
yeah.
Um, Niners and Eagles is to me one of the hardest games to kind of pinpoint. Um, I lean Niners because I feel like the Eagles offense can't really do much.
Hmm.
Um, but it's also weird because the Eagles are 10-0 when when Jalen Hurts is held under 200 yards,
Yeah.
which like
That's a
any quarterback, like that's so weird.
yeah, that's a weird stat. Yeah, yeah,
But I'm going Niners. I don't know. Brock Purdy has experience, but so does Jalen Hurts.
yeah,
It's just such a hard game to predict.
yeah,
Last one, I'm going Patriots. I don't want the Patriots to win because I kind of want Patriot fans to be a little humbled. Um, because they're already at like we're winning the championship. Like, can we win a playoff game first?
yeah.
Um, but it's really hard because I think like Drake May has been, I think, more than just a good player. I think he's been the most consistent quarterback this year.
Yeah.
So I think that can still play in the playoffs. You might get a great game from Justin Herbert. You might have a dud.
Yeah.
However, they do have the better head coach, I think, in
Oh yeah.
Jim Harbaugh. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean Vrabel though has shown that he wasn't a one-hit wonder in Tennessee. He knows what he's doing there. I can't disagree with any of that, except I think that we'll learn a lot about the Patriots Sunday night, to see can they step up this newer team, newer version of the Patriots, can they step up? I mean, the Chargers are very good, so I think that's going to be an amazing game. And then we've got a playoff game Monday night again, and that is the Texans in Pittsburgh, though, to take on the Steelers. You're liking the Texans, yes?
Yeah, once again by like a hair. I think the Texans they have the better defense. I think head coaching's kind of a wash. Quarterbacks are pretty close, but I think the defense might end up holding up there.
Yeah, yeah. I like the Texans as well. They're on quite a run after a terrible start. Earlier in the season we were saying, "Oh man, what happened? What happened to Stroud?" And Stroud was out, I think, 3 games, 4 games, and his backup did an amazing job. And Stroud now is back to being the way he was the last couple of years. And so I think that's going to be quite the game. I still think the Niners Eagles is the game of the weekend, but I think that Houston Pittsburgh matchup, especially since it's in Pittsburgh, cold weather, there, I think that's going to be fascinating. All right, so that'll wrap up the NFL for this week. We spent a lot of time on it, but rightly so. Real quick, Ole Miss, Miami, Oregon, Indiana, in the college playoffs. Some teams that are haven't traditionally been there the last few years. What are you thinking?
I kind of want to see Indiana in the final at this point. I think it would be a
Yeah,
really cool story.
yeah, yeah,
And also kind of Miami. I think
yeah,
that because there was the debate like should it be Miami or should it be Notre Dame in the college football playoff? And I think that Miami is really proving that they deserve to be there.
they have. They have. This Ole Miss run, I'm going to talk about that in my inspiration is has been like fascinating. If they get to imagine if they win the championship without Lane Kiffin, and Charlie Weiss Jr. as their head coach. This has been a fascinating run, and I'm with you. Indiana, they just seem like a special team this year. So I'm certainly will be talking about that a little bit more. And it's smart that they're staying away from the NFL. You looked that up before we got on the air, and that is they are. There's a game tonight and there's a game tomorrow night, which is smart. So for a football fan, man, you're in heaven over these next what Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Over these next 5 days, man, you're pumped up. All right, let's shift over real quick to baseball. What is going on, Kenny? I don't. I mean, we've had this now for a couple of years, and now we're back into it this year. It looked like we were hot there with Pete Alonso signed, Diaz. We had some free agents going, Schwarber. But now we still have Kyle Tucker, Cody Bellinger, Alex Bregman, Bo Bichette, Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez. All these guys are still out there. Big trade the Cubs made. I told you this before on the air. I think a lot of people don't know how good Edward Cabrera is. He's an excellent pitcher, and I think that's a big trade. I don't know why the Marlins traded him, by the way. Maybe it's a salary thing. It looked like the Marlins are building something. You would think they'd hold on to their pitching because they held on to Alcantara last year. So you'd think they'd hold on to their pitching, but who knows? They always seem to have somebody good to replace them, though. So your thoughts, real quick, on this baseball season and that trade? Baseball.
Um, I I know the Yankees were kind of in on
Yeah,
Edward Cabrera a little bit. Kind of seems like the Cubs gave up a lot, so okay, whatever. Um, I think one of the bigger things that's happening is I don't know if you know the GIF from The Office where like everyone's like holding up like finger guns and staring at each other. It's
right.
like a standoff
Yeah,
because that's exact. Everyone is hoping that the other guy will sign so that they'll reset the market so that they can ask for more money.
yeah,
Like Cody Bellinger is waiting for Kyle Tucker to sign so that he can say, "Oh well, I deserve this much."
yeah,
But then Alex Bregman is waiting for all of those other guys to sign so he can say, "Well, like they got 4, 5, 6 years. I deserve at least 4."
yeah,
And then same with Bo Bichette. So, and I think part of it might be a where they're going because like let's say the Yankees have made, like, we know the Yankees have made an offer to Cody. Let's say they also have made an offer to Kyle Tucker, but they're like, well, we want to see if Cody Bellinger because we'd rather have him first, and then we'll see what you like. I feel like there's just, I think what'll happen is when one signs, the rest will sign within like a week or so. And
Yeah,
that's annoying. And I think that baseball really needs to address it. I mean, CBA is coming up.
yeah.
Do you put like a deadline where
Oh
if you
yeah.
don't sign by like January 15th, you can only sign for like the veterans minimum or something like that?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
that'll start getting people going.
I think so. I think they should do something or have a period like the NFL has, right? The free agent signing and stuff like that. I think you're dead on. I everything I see from the people that we trust, John Heyman and a few others saying that the Mets really want Cody Bellinger, but they also think that Kyle Tucker's a better player than Cody Bellinger. It's hard for me to say because Bellinger brings so much to the table defensively, and Tucker's very good. And they're saying that if they do get Bellinger, they don't have to interrupt the team so much. Whereas if they get Tucker, they probably have to move Juan Soto to left field. Um, so I don't know, man. And is there still a trade to be made out there? The Scooble thing to the Mets is come back. I don't know why. I know he's not your guy, but I love Framber Valdez. I don't know why the Mets don't try to pull the trigger on him. Or I probably would prefer Ranger Suarez more than any other pitcher right now because he seems to have ice water in his veins as well, and he seems to be a little bit more consistent than Valdez. But the Mets still need a frontline pitcher, and they need an outfielder. So, um, until then, their offseason is not complete. But I do think that the Yankees need Bellinger more. I think if the Yankees don't sign Bellinger, they will either pull the trigger on a big trade or they'll throw the world at Kyle Tucker to get him here because they need one of them. So, your thoughts on that?
I totally agree because like bringing back Bellinger means that like you're kind of saying we were good enough to win last year, and we're just kind of bringing the band back together and kind of shoring up pitching and
Yeah,
everyone getting healthy and everything.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You lose Bellinger and your outfield is Dominguez slash Jones with Trent Grisham and Aaron Judge. Like you're a little more concerning to me.
yeah.
Although fun fact, Trent Grisham led all of Major League Baseball or led all center fielders with home runs last year. And also kind of interesting, Aaron Judge did not lead all right fielders with home runs because he had a lot as a DH.
Oh, okay, okay, gotcha.
Trivia, you know who did lead?
No, who led?
You could probably guess it pretty quickly.
From what team?
It's a National League team.
Not
Led
sure.
all right fielders. Not Shohei.
Yeah, no,
Led
he's
all right fielders in home runs.
huh. Acuna was out a lot. I would have said him. Juan Soto.
Almost,
Juan
yeah,
Soto.
Juan Soto.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. 43. Yeah. All right. NBA last night. Trae Young. I've never been a big Trae Young guy. He kills the Mets. He kills the Knicks. And he's an amazing talent. And I remember you and I loved him in college when he was in Oklahoma and led them, I think, to the Final Four that year. But he's a scattered player to me, like he creates a lot of chaos. And sometimes he'll throw up shots and you're like, oh my gosh, what's he oh, and it went in. Nonetheless, I am still mildly surprised that his tenure in Atlanta ended. And we were seeing signs over the last couple of years that maybe Atlanta was looking to go in a different direction. And then, you read the last week or so that they're negotiating a trade and he's given them permission. Next thing you go, he goes to the Wizards. And you said this in text to me yesterday that it just seems to be a very, very odd trade. And you're not sure who's benefiting from that. Now, reading a little further last night, it almost looks like the Hawks, they're saying that the Hawks are trying to get Anthony Davis, that's their guy. Not sure why. We love Anthony Davis as a player when he's on the court, but he's Mr. Street Clothes, unfortunately. And, you know, um, it's an odd trade. I think it gives the Wizards someone to build around finally. It's been a long time since the Wizards had a star player to to build around. I mean, they've had Bradley Beal and a few others, but I think Young, unless they're planning on flipping him again at the trading deadline, he's a guy I think they can build around. He'll bring some excitement, I think, back to that team. But what are your thoughts now after you kind of let this settle in overnight with this Trae Young trade?
Still a little weird, but there is a very big consolation prize. Um, so the Wizards, I don't know where they stand right now. Uh, but if they finish outside of the top eight, you know
Right.
who gets their draft pick?
The Knicks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you, Trae Young, for helping the Knicks.
The other player that got thrown into that trade has actually built a nice NBA career, and that's is that Kispert? Did I pronounce his last name right? He was the guy from Gonzaga who was the big player on their team. I think they went to the Final Four a couple of times with him. CJ McCollum is still a very serviceable player. I'm not sure how much he'll help the Hawks, but I agree with your initial assessment. It's an odd trade. I would have thought that the Hawks would have gotten more for Young if they had kind of waited this out. Maybe there was some underlying things where they said we got to get this guy out of here. He doesn't seem like a troublemaker, so I don't know. He's not Jimmy Butler, put it that way. Uh, so it's an odd trade. What
What is that?
It's an odd trade, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really weird.
What did you think of OKC losing by 30 to Charlotte the other night? Any just a bad night, or is there some kinks in the armor of OKC?
I think OKC is showing how hard it is to go 73-9 because now they're 31-7.
Yeah,
They're 6-6 over the last 12,
right.
which is still good.
Yeah,
Like if you're the Wizards, you'd kill for 6-6.
yeah,
In fact, another team that's gone 6-6 in their last 12 is the Charlotte Hornets,
yeah,
and they're having a ball.
yeah, yeah,
No pun intended. But uh, I think they're just showing how difficult it is, and I think sometimes we see it in the NBA where the first third of the season, the good teams tend to dominate, or the teams that like start off slow but then kind of gradually get better. Like especially like the veteran teams. Like I think a lot of like the Heat teams, the Laker teams that LeBron was on, like a lot of those teams tend to more just be good, but then get better as the season goes later. But like you have the teams that are red hot in the first third of the year. In the second third of the year, I feel like the bad teams are like, oh, we actually have to play basketball.
yeah.
So then like you
Great
see a
assessment.
lot more upsets. Like I think of all those times the Knicks won on my birthday when they won 12 games and they're beating like the first place Spurs or whoever.
Yeah,
Or the game we went to where they beat the Pistons, who are defending champions. Like you see that a lot, but then in the last third, that's when teams kind of say, okay, like we're actually good, or oh, we're actually bad.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
think we also kind of see that a little bit with the Knicks, who have kind of struggled the last week or so, losing to Detroit, losing to a couple other teams in there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I don't think there's anything wrong.
yeah,
I just think that they're showing that they aren't the 74-8 team that we thought they might be.
yeah, yeah. All right, I'm with you. I'm with you. Knicks Pistons the other night. I was the only one that was grieved by that, as we had our little text chain. And I think that Nicholas put some perspective on that. You want that stuff to happen early in the year. Pistons look really good though, man. I tell you what, Cade Cunningham was just at another level. But they don't like the Knicks, because the Knicks, kind of rubbed their nose in it a little bit last year. And so that's going to be a good rivalry down the road. Knicks bounced back last night. Great win, I thought, over the Clippers. Interesting fact, maybe you heard this if you watched the game, that you know that Kawhi Leonard has played in 19 straight games. I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but he's playing the best
Is that
basketball of his career,
is
Kawhi Leonard.
is that a personal record?
Oh no, I don't know. I'm sure early in his career he played all the time, when he was with San Antonio. But and I thought he was older. He's 34. He's been in the league 14 years, and he's 34 years old. So, maybe he still has some good. If he's healthy, he's one of the best players in the league when he's healthy. I just, but we talked about Anthony Davis. Same can be said for him too. Um, all right, we'll talk more NBA next week. Are you ready to get to some inspiration?
Let's do it.
Trinidad Chambliss, the quarterback for Ole Miss, is my inspiration this week. I don't know if you saw this. So he's got a very interesting story, a little long to go into. So I won't. Long story short is that he's eligible next year to play another year. And so he's got to debate whether he goes back to Ole Miss. He's also eligible to go into the draft, or he's eligible to go into the portal. And a lot of the his teammates are worried that he's going to go into the portal. In fact, I think he had a funny commercial mocking that because I think that's more news in the Mississippi area than it is nationally. But he's played lights out almost all season long, and he's really stepped up during these playoffs. And he, after each game, he is gives glory to God, but he's asked about what he's going to do next year, and he simply says, "I'm just going to lean totally on the Lord, and He's going to tell me exactly where I need to be next year." So I really loved seeing and hearing that. Look him up, watch the game if you can. He's a special talent. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks if he does want to come out this year. But Trinidad Chambliss is my inspiration this week, quarterback of Ole Miss.
Wow. What an interesting story with Ole Miss.
It
And
really
yeah,
is.
good for him. I
Really is.
I I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to talk about I want to tie in one of the more well-known people in the Bible. Like, and I'll just ask you, the Apostle Paul,
Yeah.
like what is the thing that you would say he's known for?
He was a really bad guy, and the change in him once the Lord blinds him, and the change in him on his walk to Damascus um is just it's fascinating, and the guy winds up writing, what is it, over 70% of the New Testament. Amazing, but he was a bad guy. He and his transformation, I think, is one of the best stories, not just in the Bible, but in our history.
Yeah, and that's I think we see that a little bit now. I'm not saying he's the Apostle Paul, but look at the change that we've seen in one Miles Garrett
Yeah,
over the last 6 years.
yeah,
I didn't realize it was this far back, but 2019, Miles Garrett took off the helmet of Mason Rudolph and then whacked him over the side of the head with it. Which, like, I mean, Miles Garrett's a huge dude, and it was definitely an awful situation. He ends up getting suspended for 6 games. Um, one of the most we see for like an on-field incident, arguably ever.
yeah.
And like
National team
definitely his
on too. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it was national TV and
Thursday
like
night game. Yeah,
it was a scary moment for like people were saying like, oh, like he could have hurt him seriously, which he could have.
yeah,
Um, now Garrett insists, and I kind of agree with him, especially since like you look at his character outside, like he's never had another serious incident like that or anything like that. He says that he was called the N word, and that's what kind of ticked him off. And if that's the case, it's still not okay, but it makes sense. So fast forward to this past Sunday where he breaks the NFL sacks record for a single season. So you have TJ Watt who tied Michael Strahan, but he finally passes it.
yeah,
Some people have argued, well, he did it in 17 games. He also did it in like 100 less snaps than TJ Watt, almost 200 less snaps than Michael Strahan. So give me a break
yeah. He's got the
on that.
record. Period.
He's got the record.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think it's just a crazy story of um, how a reputation can truly change. Because a lot of people always looked back at that moment, but now, like, if you were to Google Miles Garrett, you're not going to see him in a fight. You're going to see him sacking Joe Burrow to break the sacks record. And I think it's just a good example of who you are now doesn't have to be who you will be in 5, 6, 7 years. And I do hope that, like, just as an encouragement, like, if you're in a bad spot now, it doesn't mean that you are stuck in that bad spot forever.
Amen.
And I really do. I think what he's done, and a lot of people have come out and congratulated him. I've heard some stories of people like saying how great of a guy he is, how hard of a worker he is, how he's been very generous and all that stuff. So, Myles Garrett, congratulations. I hope that you break your own record next year and you get to 25 like you were hoping for this year.
Yeah. Well said. I don't have anything to add to that. I loved how you tied that in. Well said, Myles Garrett. What an amazing, amazing year. Um, this is too bad. Hopefully the Browns will be good, so we could see him play more often. Hopefully they'll be good next year. You guys see him there every week, but nationally we don't. All right. All right. Hopefully this you'll enjoy this show. I thought it was a great show. We really covered a lot. We'll be back next week, talk more playoffs, both college as well as NFL. Will start to really come into picture. Enjoy these next 5 days. It's going to be amazing. Hopefully we'll have some baseball signings. Kenny, take us home.
Yeah, this is Kenny Squared N.
Kenny.
With Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys next week.